seats are for.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session at Build. We're here to talk to you about boosting your app's reach and engagement with app actions on Windows. I'm Sasha Sprock. I'm a product lead on the Windows platform team, and I'm joined here by my co-presenter.
Hey everyone, I'm Pramalini David. I'm a senior product manager on the Windows platform team, and I'm joined by
Special surprise edition.
I'm Alex. I'm a software developer engineer on the Windows team working on Actions.
Excellent. So we're excited to be announcing today that we're releasing a new set of APIs and tools for app developers. We're calling it App Actions on Windows. And these APIs and tools will enable you to build actions for your app's features, then register those actions into a catalog, and then those actions from that catalog will be able to be consumed by agents, LLMs, and other applications, thereby elevating your app's visibility and unlocking key entry points for you to reach users. So there's a documentation link at the bottom if you want to check it out. That went live yesterday morning. And now I want to talk about the kinds of experiences that you'll be able to build for your end users with this platform. So I'm going to start with a demo. In this demo, I'm going to pretend that I'm a customer and I'm trying to make a background for my video. So this is the end user goal. And I'm going to use two apps to show you this working. One is Filmora, which is a video editing app, and one is Zoom, which is a video calling meetings app. So I'm going to start in Filmora, and I've been editing this video. It's a drawing that I created. I'm making this time lapse. I love it. It looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and export it. This is the end of my journey with Filmora. I've done it. I've made the video. Now I want to take it and do things with it. And so with this integration, with a single click, Zoom launches, and now my background is available in Zoom as a live background for my video calls. All right, so that went by kind of quick. So I want to talk through in a bit more detail what just happened, what was interesting about that interaction. So pre-actions, the user flow for trying to create a custom background might look something like this. You're going to start with a cool video. Filmora's got you covered there. You're going to export your video and save it somewhere. Then, as a user, you're just going to know that Zoom supports video backgrounds. How many of you already knew that Zoom supported video backgrounds? Maybe some of you. Notably, with Actions, you won't have to, but here, the user just has to know. Then, the user is going to launch Zoom, then go into Settings, Background, and Effects, then go to the little plus button on the corner there, choose Add Video. Oh, okay, then your file browser opens, and you do have to remember, where did you save that video? Was it in Videos? No, it wasn't there. Oh, I bet I put it in important unsorted stuff. I keep doing that. There it is, there's my stopwatch video. Okay, so now I'm gonna upload it, and then finally I get to enjoy my new Zoom background. Not a terrible experience, but I think we could do better. So with Actions, go back to step one. You've got a cool video. You've just exported it. You've ended your journey with creating your video with Filmora. And then with a single click, you're going to take steps 2 through 6 and replace them with a single step, choose action. From there, you go directly to enjoying your background. So this is a way to shortcut your user's flow. So in this example, Zoom was acting as an action provider. They provided an action set as virtual background, which acts on video inputs. Filmora had a newly created video ready to do something with, and gave the option to the user to invoke the Zoom action.
But Sasha, this is great for app-to-app interaction. What's in it for my app?
That is a fabulous question for Melanie. The key takeaway here is not about any particular feature in any particular app. It's really, although they are very cool, it's really about the platform that enables them. So we're releasing these platform APIs to do these cross-app integrations in an efficient, streamlined kind of way. Notably, there was no special integration required on the part of Zoom or Filmora. Zoom simply provided the action and made it available for apps like Filmora or other apps. For example, possibly Raycast. So really quickly, I want to demo Raycast, also consuming actions. And I'm going to swap the monitor here. So Raycast is a collection of productivity tools with an extensible sort of launcher. So I can launch it using Alt-Space, and then it can do things like search for files or perform automation. So in this case, I'm going to search for files. I'm going to look for my watch, and this could be a video or an image that I had just created. Then I'm going to choose Control-K to launch actions, look for the actions on Windows, and you can see right here, set this picture as my Zoom background was there in Filmora as well. But there's also all these other actions. For example, attach an image to Composer in Spark. So let me go ahead and run that action. And as you can see, it added the image to the email that I was creating in Spark. So this is Raycast now has consumed multiple actions from the action platform. And in fact, there are a lot of apps that have been creating and consuming actions. So here are some of the apps that are currently building or consuming actions. And as this catalog grows, more and more apps are going to be able to call the actions that you provide without you doing additional work. So in this case, Zoom or Spark didn't do anything special to get Raycast to be able to call them. Also, note in this consumers list, agents and LLMs, like Copilot, will also be able to consume actions and bring them to users, either directly through our APIs or through natural language protocols like MCP, Model Context Protocol, which you may have heard about in yesterday's keynote and in a previous session here. So with a simple flag in your code as a provider, you'll be able to enable Windows to wrap your action as an MCP server tool. And the Windows MCP registry will collect those actions and make them available for any MCP host that is consuming that Windows MCP registry.
But Sasha, as an app developer, how do I decide if I want to produce or consume actions?
That's a fabulous question. First of all, you don't have to choose between them. You could actually do both. But let's go a little bit deeper onto why you might want to produce and or consume actions. As an app developer, the starting point that we're assuming here is that you've got an awesome app. You love your app, we love your app. Your app has really cool features, and you want people to know about those cool features. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So your app's coolest features, those are the ones that you should think about registering as an action. If you register the coolest features of your app as an action, it creates opportunities for users to see entry points to your app from that feature, even if your app is not currently running. You also probably want to avoid reinventing wheels. This would be a reason that you might want to consume actions. You can leverage actions from other apps to access complementary functionalities and give them to your user without needing to go build that particular functionality yourself. As an app developer, you probably also like efficiency, both for yourselves and for your users. And App Actions lets your users skip steps and also makes those cross-app integrations easier for you. Basically, you build it once, and then it'll show up in multiple places.
So you mentioned MCP. It means that if I build an action and enable an MCP server for it, LLMs can just call my app, that's it?
They can with a caveat or two on security and trust. So your LLMs will be able to access them if the user has it enabled in settings and if they accept whatever prompts or handshakes are required for it to be able to
Got it. So the user is still in control.
Yes, the user is still in control. But we make it as easy as possible connecting things for you under the surface by registering those actions into the registry for you. All right. So we'll talk a bit more about those, about additional guardrails and controls that help you ensure trust for your users. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail actually about how all of these things, how App Actions is going to help you with all of these things. But first, I want to just ground us on a couple of terms that we've been using, in particular actions and entities. So I said actions many times already. What the heck is an action? An action is an atomic unit of functionality. So you can think of actions as being not so small that they're just a single operation, like a right click or open a context menu, but they're also not so big that it's take hours to create and too complicated. Think of it as that middle ground where a user is describing, hey, I'm trying to do a thing. I'm trying to set a background. I'm trying to generate a summary with AI. I'm trying to enhance this content and make it look better. Those sort of steps along the user journey. And then entities are the things that your actions can act on. So they're inputs and outputs to your action. Your action can have 0, 1, or more entities as inputs, and 0, 1, or more as outputs. So for example, as your inputs, you could even mix and match entities. So the entities that exist today in production are text, images, and files like documents and videos. And there are more coming soon that we're exploring, and we would love your feedback on which ones to bring into the platform next, but things like contact, date, or custom entities. And you're able to mix and match those entities as your input. So for example, you might say, my action is going to take in a date and an address, and the action will be to find a one-way flight. Or you could take in an address and 2 dates, and then find a round-trip flight. Or possibly you take in an email address and a video, and then send it to that particular person directly. So you can have multiple inputs to your actions. And then your actions can also have multiple outputs, or they could have none at all. So let's briefly show you what that might look like. So here I'm back in my folder, important unsorted stuff, and I can't quite remember all of the random stuff that I had in this folder. So I'm going to just look through here and see, oh, I've got these AI actions summarized with Copilot. Let me see what that does. I want to see what was that EV charger spec? What was it about? And Copilot is having a lot of fun on the conference Wi-Fi, but Copilot is directly summarizing that action right there and taking the result and returning it to the caller. So in this case, Windows, the file explorer, called that action, and the action was produced by Office. But the Office app isn't actually running right now. It ran it in the background and then returned the text to Windows, and Windows rendered it in a screen. So this is an example of an app that is consuming an entity that is handling the result of that action. And then just to show you another example, you've already seen an example of a handoff action where it launches UI directly, but let's show another one anyway. So here I'm in my file explorer, and let's say I want to add a headshot. And I'm looking at these headshots, and I'm going, you know what, they all kind of have busy backgrounds. So let me grab one of those and look at my AI actions, and oh, look at that, I've got blur background with photos. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, and you can see the moment that I click it, we hand off the experience to the app that provided the action. In this case, it was Photos. So Photos launched, performed the behavior, and then left the user there ready to go to play with it. So now you can look at it and go, oh yeah, it did blur my background. I can show if it's unblurred or blurred. I can play around with it a bit because now I'm in Photos. So in this case, Photos did not return a result. They simply performed the behavior. But they could choose to return a result and perform the behavior. So as the provider, you get to choose what does your action do and how many entities does it consume or return. All right. So now I think I'm ready to build an action. Alex, you're a developer. Can you show us what it looks like to actually do this?
Well, I can try. let's swap to my machine right here, number 4.
4.
Perfect. All right, so what I have here is just VS. The only thing that I've installed is an extension that adds a template whenever I'm creating a WinUI application. So this is not a project template, it's just an item template. So this is just a blank WinUI application. Let's call this my cool action. And from this, we literally just have a blank application, nothing too complicated here yet. The one thing we got to do is just target a new version of the Windows SDK. So if I double click on my project here, I will change this from targeting 19.041 to 26.100. And wavy hands here, this is because we don't have a new version of the .NET SDK targeting the new projection, so I have to add this one line here. But bear with me, this is not going to be the case when you guys are building your actions. And this is 67 for .NET 8 and 68, if I'm not mistaken, for .NET 9. Not important. But just by doing so, if I right-click on my project, I have this Add Windows Action. And that's the new button, the new magic button that is going to create a template for us that will help us create our action. It's just asking for a name. I'm just going to click on Add. And this creates a template for me. But it actually does more than just put that file there. It creates a bunch of connections with my Apex manifest and exposes my manifest, everything coming out of this one template file. So we're using C# source generation to automatically generate the manifest for you, so you don't have to specify literally everything. You're still in control of what it has, so you can see what it's being generated. So if I click here on registration.json, it has this manifest file. It defines the ID of my action, a description, icon, multiple things that we went through. It has inputs, so we have one input in this case. The name is message, the kind is text. It has one input combination, which is different, which are different ways that I'm exposing this action to the system. Let's say that I have an action that has 2 separate inputs, and I want to support one scenario where you're only sending one of them, and the other scenario where you're sending both of them, right? And I can have different descriptions to the system that consumers can choose to use. And in this case, I also have an output, which has a name of response, and it's of kind text. And in this case, this is plumbing, but it's using a COM server that is being generated for us out of our C# file. So now let's go back to that, and I'm going to walk you through everything that was created for us. Let me just space things out a little bit more so we can actually see what we're reading, and move this down as well. OK. So this is just a C# class that is annotated with this action provider annotation. And this makes it generate that registration.json and also generates the registration on the COM server itself. So when we added that Windows action, we also added a connection to the manifest on our Apex manifest. And it's actually linking directly to this file based on the name, on the fully qualified name of the class. So if I right-click on my project here, just open on the Apex manifest and show you that, you will see that we added a couple of things. So 2 extensions were added to my Apex manifest. The very first one is this COM Microsoft Windows AI Actions, and it has a display name, it has a public folder assets, so external applications can actually access this registration.json file, and I'm literally just setting one property called registration that points to that registration.json file. So that's the connection, that's how I'm exposing that manifest file out of my application to the runtime, to the Windows Action Framework. And the other thing that I'm doing is creating a COM server, which is within the same executable that I have, and it has this ID that was automatically generated out of the fully qualified name of my class, right? So this ID right here matches, or should match, yeah, right here, this other ID that we have. That's the connection that we have. There is another way of doing this. You don't actually need a COM server. Let's say that you are, for example, a PWA, and you want to support this. You don't need to have a COM server shipping together with your PWA. You can also just change this to a URI activation, and then you have a URI property that you can just do a protocol activation of your app. And then you would handle that however you would handle that within your app. You don't need to do that for Win32 apps as well, but for PWAs, that's an option, right? And that is the registration itself. So let's quickly go back to the action handler, and let's go through what actions we have and what entities we have. So within my method, you can think of the name of the method as the actual action. This is what I'm doing. This is the functionality that I'm exposing to Windows so others can call. In this case, it's called send message. And I have a description of this action itself, send message, and for this one input combination, send message in quotes with the body of the message, right? But let's say that I want to change this. Let's say that I want to do a to-do application or something around those lines. I could simply change this to add to-do. And just by doing so and building my project, if I go back to my registration.json and move it up, you will see that once the build finishes, that method is now add to do. So I didn't have to touch this file. This is automatically generated for us. It will be kept in sync. This is just using Roslyn, nothing too complicated here. But if we go back and we try to actually change the inputs, and in this case, this is our entity, we have one entity of type string, so it is a text entity, right? But let's say that I wanted to have something else. Let's say that I wanted to have a second parameter here that was a file. So in the add to do, we not only have this, let's say, actually, let's change this to do. Oh, wait, something broke. What happened? If I put my mouse on top, I'll see that, oh, yeah, this is saying that now this entity name is invalid. That's because we're checking. We're making sure that your inputs are matching what you're defining as your inputs should be. And AI actually is going to help me here. Oh, there you go. Oh, cool. You don't have to write much code. It actually did the whole thing for me. And oh, it's actually suggesting for me to do a to-do task delay. Awesome. So I'm faking some work here, and someone else will actually finish this up for me. But let's also, just for completeness, change this record to match. So instead of send message result, this is an add to do result. Oh, I think I used this wrong shortcut. Add to do result, move the mouse away. Now I can rename. I'll just manually do it. All right. So now that we have this, I think it actually created a class. That was my problem. Oh, right. OK, perfect. So now that we have this class, let's say that we wanted to have another input of type file, right? Let's say that I want to accept a file, or even better, a photo, right? What I could do is just add another string here. That's one way of doing it. And I'll say that this is a photo. And I'm going to annotate this with an entity property. And within my entity property, I have a kind equals Windows AI actions, action entity kind, dot photo. So what this is doing, not very scroll friendly, what this is doing is within my manifest, it is actually saying, oh, this is not a string. This is actually a photo. So I'm going to send you the full path of the file that is being sent to me, right? So if I build this again, and I switch back to my registration.json, now I have a second input, and this is named photo, and it's of kind photo. So whenever we have another application that is querying the system, they might say, well, I have this photo. What can I do with a photo? Then the system is going to return my application, so others can call me, right? So that's pretty much how things are connected. The one thing that I missed here was just the input combination. I do have to do that, so I can just copy this over, and now instead of having one input combination, we're going to have two. The first one is to do, and the second one is to do and photo. So in this case, I'm adding to do, adding photo. Yeah, that works for me. Adding to do with photo. That's better. Perfect. So that's basically how you build an action. We also have the returns. Let's say that I didn't want to return anything. All I would have to do is just remove this method, this property, the return itself. So now this is just a task or a value task or void if you're not using async, and it will just generate exactly the same thing. And if I rebuild this, now we don't have any outputs. Yeah, outputs is gone, and that's it. So I didn't have to return anything if I didn't want to. But now that I'm here, I built this thing, how do I actually test it?
I have the answer to that. We are announcing the App Actions Testing Playground. That is how the user would try to test the action that they've just authored. Try it out, Alex.
Okay, let's see. So first, I think we need to deploy this thing. So let me just F5 once. So it's registered on the system. I not only have to build it, I have to register it and stop it just so it's registered once. And now if I go here on my apps, oh, here it is, action testing tool. So just by opening this up, and now that I've registered my app, I now have my action here, and I can actually execute it through the test app. So let's try to do that. Well, it still has the send message. I should have updated that. But that's OK. Here are my two separate invocations, one which is just an add to do, and the other one is add to do with photo. Let's just call the simple one. And I think it's going to crash because I clicked on the wrong thing. Pretty sure. Yep. That's a known bug. Has been fixed already, just not on this version. OK, I'm just going to send this sample text entity. And if I click on run, it just returned, it opened up my application, and no problems occurred. So if I go back to my action, well, I wasn't debugging, but this was just a simple delay, and it returned a value, and the application was executed. So this is how you would test your application. If you had a debugger attached here, you would literally get all the inputs. You would literally see everything that is happening, and that's pretty much it.
Cool. All right, that is pretty impressive. From a new project to a working action in less than 5 minutes, I'm impressed. But there was there were a lot of methods and capabilities there. Pramalini, would you mind walking through some of those in a bit more detail?
Absolutely. So let's go take a look at the action authoring side. But before we do that, what's the dev environment that you need to set up? Yes, so basic things: install Visual Studio 2022, .NET workload for C#, and C++ workload for C++. And as far as the app types that are supported, we support Win32 apps with identity. That's important, both MSIX and sparse packaging. And the second one is we support packaged PWAs. So with that said, I would now like to show you the to-do list app that I've coded up as Alex was speaking. So what I basically watched over his shoulder, and I was coding as he was doing his to-do list. So let me run this app. What does this do? So I follow the steps that Alex did, and I'm running the app to make sure that what he said actually works. And it's building. And we believe the demo gods are with us, so we're going to see this app pretty soon. I just hope I don't have too many to-do items on my list, and that's not the reason why it's taking a while. Excellent. Here is my to-do list app. It is empty. The reason is I've completed all my to-do items for the day. I can now spend all my time with you guys enjoying build, the sessions, the labs. However, I have gone ahead and added an action. I've authored an action. What the action does is takes user input text from a consumption app and adds it to my to-do list as a to-do item. I want to walk you through that. As Alex showed, we have this Windows action already defined. I add a description, add an icon. In my particular app, there is this uses generative AI flag, which I've set to false. The reason it is set to false is it's a very simple app. I am not using any AI model for the functionality of my action. Therefore, uses generative AI is set to false. Then I have Windows action input combination. My app is simple again. I just take input as text. The rest of the app itself has to do with taking the input and basically adding it to a to-do list, and the result is that the item is created. Now, I walked you through this code. I'm going to use this test app that we just announced to test this, because I don't know how many consumers are out there that would want to use my to-do list action. So I need to test it first. So I'm going to go open this up, add a text entity, so text string. Sasha, what was that session you told me about yesterday that I should listen to?
BRK229. Yeah, that one, it happened yesterday, but it was about MCP and the Windows MCP registry. And they also mentioned and demoed how when you build an action, it can, you can enable it for an MCP server and then get consumed by agents.
Awesome. So I have to make a note. I'm going to add a to-do item. Listen to BRK229. And I bet you want to add it to your to-do list. OK, let's go ahead and add that. Now that I've added my string as input, I'm going to run this action. How does my test app know that I have authored an action? That's because, as Alex referred to, in the package.app manifest, you have notified that you're registering your action with the actions catalog on this device. This app is basically looking at querying for all the actions on the device, and that's how it knows there is an action from my to-do list app. I have only one input combination. Therefore, there is one entry here.
Her version is fixed.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to take the input that I just entered, which is listen to BRK229. So let's go ahead and run this action, and let's see if it really works. Oh, it says that it's been added. Let's go to the to-do list. Voila, it's been added to the app. Excellent. So I know, yeah, indeed, I have one exciting to-do item for today. Go listen to BRK229. There is one check I do want to make, though. What happens if the user adds accidentally some random text? I don't want that to be added to my to-do list, but let's see what happens, though. It is added. I do not want this to happen. So let me go back to my app. I am going to go ahead in the input combinations. I'm going to go ahead and add a where clause.
So you're limiting who can call you.
Mm-hmm. And I want to say that the length of my text should be, let's see, 10. Would that be sufficient? I think so.
I think that's OK.
Yeah, I think that should be fine. I'm listing this. That should do it, I think. Yep.
Yeah, delete that character.
Yeah, this. Yep.
And you need to close because it's a list.
Yes.
It's an array of where clauses. That's why it's confusing.
There we go.
So you can actually have more than one where clause.
Yes, you can have more than one where clause. I'm specifying that my length of the to-do list, to-do item, should be greater than 10 characters. But I can also specify a where clause which says it should be more than a certain word count. In Alex's case, when he showed a photo as an entity that is taken as input, you can specify the photo should be of a particular type format. If it's a file entity, I can say in my where clause that it has to be of a specific extension. Now, the where clauses are executed sequentially. All where clauses have to execute to true before your action is invoked. So that is the part where, as an action author, I get to say that my action should be invoked only when certain properties on the input entity are met. In this case, where clause. Now, typically, when you publish your app to the store, that's how your actions are going to be available to a consuming app. In my case, I haven't actually published to the store, but I have to simulate it, where the end user would download the app from the store, reinstall their app. Since I have made a change to my action, I've added a where clause, I do have to uninstall the earlier version of the app to simulate what happens via the store. I'm going to uninstall it. And let's see. It's gone. Yep.
Seems to be gone.
Yep, looks like it's gone. I'm going to run this again. And this time, All right, this time let me test in my test app if the user enters 2 characters. I do not want the action to be taken. So add this, run action, there is an error. So I know that my where clause is working and nothing's added to my to-do list. So that's the where clause. Now we have taken a look at how to author an action. Let me now introduce you to how to consume an action. What happens on the consumption side? For that, I would like to introduce you to my consumption app. Let me go ahead and first run that app. And introduce you to what it actually does. Okay, let's run this app first. So when this app opens up, you're going to see that this is a Fourth Coffee microblogging app. The reason it's called Fourth Coffee is because a bunch of us were on our fourth coffees when trying to decide how to showcase all the rich functionality of consumption to you. And this is a microblogging site. We are at Build. I'm busy making notes about all of the sessions, all of the labs, all of the new announcements that have been made. And I would typically go ahead and add content to it and post it and publish it. However, I have heard from somewhere that there is this to-do list app that allows me to create to-do items. So even though this is a microblogging site, I want to add actions for sessions and labs that I should attend. I know, Sasha, you had told me about some lab to go to.
Yes, that is Lab 370, and that is where you can do this exact thing you're doing right now. You can try building and consuming actions. We'll have VMs set up in the lab, and you'll be able to try these live, try building actions, get your hands dirty, actually play with code. And those machines are actually going to have some sneak previews of pre-release versions, and so they're only available during the lab session. This will not be recorded. So there's 2 of them. There's one tonight at 5:15, and there's one tomorrow at 10:45.
Okay, all right, so that's an action, that's an item I want to add to my to-do list. When I click here, the first action that is listed in this menu flyout is in fact my to-do list action. There is a very enticing summarized text action as well. We will get to that in a few minutes. Let me go ahead and add my action to the to-do list. So click on that, voila, my item has been added to the to-do list app that I've been authoring.
So the test app is pretty much calling the same APIs as the consuming app.
That is correct. That is correct. Your test app is your consumption app when you're trying to test all of the actions you're authoring on the authorship side. Now let's take a look at the code for Fourth Coffee itself, which is the consuming app. So in here, what I want to bring your attention to, step one. Step one is decide what entities that you want to have actions for. In the case of my particular app, Fourth Coffee, I'm saying I want actions for text entities. So I create an entity factory. I specify that I want to take text. I'm interested in text actions, per se. The second step is by far the most important. This is where you are going to use this API, get actions for inputs. What this does is returns the entire list of actions on text from the actions catalog. So whatever was in the actions catalog is all associated to a text entity. It's going to be returned to you. Once you get the list, the next thing is you can choose to order that list and before you show it to the user. I have chosen to order it in an alphabetic order. This is entirely left to you. You can say I want to do it order by MRU, MFU, as the case might be.
So not only ordering, if I wanted to exclude someone, I could do that too, right?
That's
I'm
right.
in complete control of what I'm showing to the user.
Yes, the consuming app can choose to say, I'm showing this and I'm not showing that. So all of that logic you can include in your consumption app.
Okay.
And the next step, the third step, is go ahead and decide how you want to show these actions to the end user. In my app, I chose a menu flyout, so that's what this is. This is just a simple menu flyout, and I've decided that I'm going to show all my actions in this menu flyout, as you saw in the Fourth Coffee app. But the next thing that is important is when the user sees your list of actions, in the case of our app, the Fourth Coffee app, they choose one of those actions. So they have clicked on a menu item. Now, go ahead and invoke that action. In the case of the interaction that we just saw, Fourth Coffee is invoking the to-do list action, and that action is getting added to the to-do list app. So that's the key step here. Once you finish getting all the action from the actions catalog, you choose to order it, you choose to show it. When the user selects an action, go ahead and invoke it.
So I'm also noticing that you're awaiting that call. So when I did that task delay, waiting for 100 milliseconds, this app would be waiting for the other app to complete, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and show you that summarize action that we were seeing on the Fourth Coffee app. Now, that summarize action is coming from a different app. It's a different app that has authorized the summarize action. Let me show you what it does. As I said, Fourth Coffee is a microblogging site. I have a bunch of notes here that I'm going to go ahead and blog about. I think it would benefit me to summarize this text. So I'm going to go ahead and choose summarize text here, and let's see what happens. This summarize text is coming from an app that has authored the summarize action. It is using a local PhiSilica model, which runs on my device. And shortly here, it should show a summary of the text that I have in here.
So this is running on the local NPU. Nothing is going to the cloud.
Correct. It is all local. The model is local. Everything, yes, all of this is happening locally. While it is summarizing, let me show you the summarize action itself. So similar to the to-do list app, we have the Windows action defined, but there are two things that I want to bring your attention to. In this particular summarize action, uses generative AI is set to true. The reason being this particular action is backed by an AI model. This is a required flag, so in the summarize case, I'm going to set it to true. The second attribute I want to draw your attention to is content age rating. So this age rating is informing the consumer of your action whether your action is meant for child accounts, minor accounts, adult accounts, or for everyone. I do think summarize should be available to everybody. I have added this here just as a point of reference for you when you go look at this file. And so these are the two attributes, uses generative AI and content age rating, which are important for user trust, so that when your action is consumed, the consumer knows that they are exposing the users to an AI action, and they can decide what the right thing is to do to expose the action to a child account, minor account, and so on and so forth. So those are the two fields that I wanted to show you. With that said, we have finished all of the action authoring and the action consumption. Let's do a quick recap of the various APIs. All right, so on the action authoring side, you specify your inputs. It was text. You specify an input combination. I had where clause set to have characters more than 10. You specify your flag, your generative AI flag. In the case of summarize, I would set it to true. In the case of the to-do list app, I had set it to false. Content age rating flag, you set that according to how you want to have your action exposed to the various types of accounts. Last but not the least, invocation. Specify if it's a COM invocation or URI invocation. For packaged Win32 apps, you will have both COM and URI available. For packaged PWA apps, it'll be a URI invocation. Once you've authored, go ahead and test your app with the new Actions Testing Playground. On the consumption side, the three main important ones are query the actions catalog for all the actions associated with the entity of your choice. So that's the first call, get actions for inputs. The next one is when the user just choose the action, go ahead, invoke the action. Last but not the least, handle the output. In the two examples that I showed you of action authoring, in one case, Fourth Coffee had the output of the to-do list action sent to, the output was on the to-do list app itself. The items were being added on the to-do list. In the case of Summarize, when Fourth Coffee, the consumption app, invoked Summarize, the summary of the text actually needs to show up in the real estate of Fourth Coffee itself. So those are the two differences, if you will, in terms of handling your action. And with that, I will hand it off back to Sasha.
Excellent, thanks, Pramali. That was very cool. So I want to bring us back to this architecture diagram showing all of the actions that are, or all the providers and consumers of actions. There are a lot of apps building and consuming actions. And in fact, I actually just learned that there are even more since I made this slide. That is really cool because the ecosystem is growing, and that means there are rich possibilities for building and consuming actions. But it's also kind of intimidating if you're thinking about, well, how many actions are going to show up and where are they going to be? I can hear you asking, who controls which actions show up where? So I want to talk a little more deeply about the mechanisms we have for control and trust. There are basically three categories of stakeholders here who have some choices, some control. First are the end users. We always want to make sure that the end users are in control and are able to enable or disable any actions that they want to have or not have on their machine. And so we actually do this in the Windows settings directly. So I can pop over to my Windows machine here and open up my settings, and you can see I've got a bunch of apps that have installed actions on this machine. So Teams has these, schedule a meeting, and we've got those Photos actions that we saw before. Reading Coach has some cool actions. And then I can disable the actions for these, and when I do that, they will not show up on the user's device, and that is a per user, per device setting. So it'll basically remove those actions from the catalog on that user's machine. The second set of stakeholders here is the provider apps, the apps actually creating the actions. So there are a few mechanisms here that you've got. First of all, you have an availability API, which you can use to set the default availability, either available or not by default, and then change it at runtime. Why you might want to do that might be something like if you want to gate your action behind a subscription, so you want to make it not available unless the user is subscribed, has their license in order, is signed in, etc., or filter based on who is calling your action. And then also, of course, you can limit your inputs at registration using the where clause that Pramalini showed, so that you can only be showing your action when the entity, the relevant entity that's being acted on, is in fact there and available. And then finally, the third set of stakeholders is the apps that are consuming the actions. And so as a developer who is writing an app that's consuming actions, you want to be able to filter and reorder those actions however you want. So you can, first of all, do that by input entity, so that you're only showing actions that are relevant to your use cases. And then also you can filter them by the provider of the action, or specifically by the action themselves, using the action ID. And underlying all of this, of course, is we want to always be able to have trust. So apps that are participating in app actions, both providers and consumers, must have identity so that the user can be confident about which apps are participating in this interaction. And then we also talked about the child and family safety mechanism, so you can flag for content if it's going to be child-friendly or for adults only, for example. And then we also, of course, have the flag for generative AI, so that users and consumer apps can both filter in or out, or simply just so that you could set a disclaimer, for example, if you're going to be showing something that's going to be using generative AI. All right. So if you take only one thing away from our session today, I hope what you take away is that you can go build these actions, and it's a great way to increase your app's reach and engagement. So think about your app and your app's stickiest features, those ones that are so useful they keep pulling people back into your app, those ones that if you just think like, if only people knew about this feature, they would absolutely be gravitating toward my app. Those features are the perfect ones to register as actions. Those actions can then be consumed by agents, LLMs, or other applications, which elevates your app's visibility and unlocks new entry points to users. And then your app, while it is an expert in something, if you try to be an expert in everything, you'll probably wind up being an expert in nothing. And so for those cases, you can consume app actions from other apps and call on those apps as the expert for that scenario. So think of cases here where your app, for example, takes in inputs or produces something that then gets used elsewhere. So those moments are the perfect opportunity to create those shortcuts for users that will increase their efficiency and will make them excited to keep coming back to your app again and again. And you can also, of course, leverage actions that return results within your app simply to provide complementary functionalities that aren't available in your app directly, and maximize the time that users are spending in your app. So if you enjoyed our session today, then I've got a list of related sessions that you might be interested in. In particular, I want to flag again Lab 370. That's happening today at 5:15, and then again tomorrow at 10:45. If you want to try this yourself, if you want to get your hands dirty and actually try coding some actions and consuming them. And that will not be recorded. And then the other breakout sessions that are related are recorded and will be on demand. And if you didn't check out BRK 229 yesterday, I highly recommend that one, watching the recording of that one. And then in the Learn More section here, this is the live now links for trying out actions. So we've got the app actions on Windows for documentation and the testing playground, which is available in the Microsoft Store. All right, with that, we will open the floor for Q&A. Thank you very much. Everything was too clear?
We do encourage you to come to that lab because that's where you would get your hands dirty with the code that I was showing you. So Lab 370, guys.
Oh yeah, I see a question in the back. There's a microphone if you want to. What was the biggest challenge in designing the actions ecosystem? Great question. Honestly, I think for me, the biggest challenge was just figuring out the details of how do we want these interactions to be handed off? Where do we want to put, where do we want to make choices for people to streamline and make it really efficient and really easy, and where do we want to add complexity in order to increase control? So trying to find that balance between you've got all these mechanisms, you can add nuance, you can add details, you can filter down, you can change things, while also making it super easy so that if you have a simple thing and you're like, yes, I just want to build it, it's simple and I want it to be everywhere, like, get out of my way, hurry up, that we can give you that sort of streamlined path through the end. And we're hoping we struck a pretty good balance there, but we would love your feedback on that. So either here or in the lab or at the booth, talking through those. We would love to hear your feedback. Other questions? Yeah?
How is localization handled in the action descriptions?
What a fabulous question. Alex, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, the other Alex probably knows the precise description of how those work. But as you saw, the icon itself, it uses MS Resources, yes. So it's just MRT Core. Yeah,
Yes, MRT.
pretty much same thing, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I think we will end it there. Thank you all for coming. If you have any more questions or want to talk through anything, we'll stick around for a couple of minutes here. And then you can always find us again at the expert booth in the exhibit hall. And you can check out the documentation online. Good luck
Thank you.
building actions.